Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the morning dump. It's Wednesday, May 6th. I'm your host, Jose Galison, and this is the kitty of the day, Phoebe. This is one of the mamas, one of the queens of our cattery, as they say. She's a sweet lady. She's a good mama, too. She makes pretty babies, and she's a sweet girl, which is actually tall order. Sometimes female animals, especially when going into heat and dealing with animals, can be quite mean, but Phoebe's always a sweetheart. But with that, for those who like my hot takes, typically Monday through Friday, somewhere around 11 a.m. Eastern is what we shoot for. We got pretty close today. Then be sure to hit that, or if you just like seeing the kitty of the day, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell for notifications. That way you can see when we're going live. And when we're dropping new videos, we'll see you in the show.
Beautiful thing. Right now.
Rise and shine. It's a beautiful day. I'm alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to white lights.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
Crazy evil.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you are having a good morning. Hope it's been a productive one as well. Mine has, and if we're going to continue that trend, and if you're just getting on the productive train, then here we are. Choo choo. Let's get to it. We have plenty to go through today. As always, we'll start off our show with some icebreaker content. More the fun, funny Gen Pop. The Gen Pop slop, as we call it. A little bit more light type of stuff, which we have a couple fun clips for in there for you guys today. Then we'll get into foreign policy, obviously a little bit less fun. And then we'll get into the main segments of the day. I got J6 Pipe Bomb, doing a little bit, touching back up on that whole discussion we had a while ago. I found a piece someone wrote that that expresses what I was trying to say in a point I was trying to make that I don't really ever feel like I quite did. So we'll get into that. And then we'll get into the 9, touching on some of the alien discourse going on these days. Is the way to contact them orgies and drugs? Perhaps. Let's find out. Then we also have Israel allegedly did 9/11. We'll see. That might get cut at the end of it. You might get shut down. Depending on how we do for time. But we'll see. That one was a little bit of, I've kind of had that sitting in the wings. Plus someone was in the comments giving me an awesome grief about, I guess not our anti-Semitism, but blaming the Jays. And I just thought it was funny. So I was like, well, whatever. I'll go hard in the paint today if we have the time. Otherwise, we'll save that for another day. But yeah, as always, I do remind you guys how this works. I pop in and hang out with the chat. This is an info dump. This is what the whole vibe of the show is. If you're expecting a well-produced, already pre-thought out, we're taking stuff. Most of this stuff is stuff we're going through the information together for the first time. This is a dump, an info dump. We're processing it together. We're hanging out. And we also we pop into the chat. I shoot the shit with you guys. I know not everybody likes that. Not everybody wants to have the chat the chat experience. That's fine. We try to save that discourse for the end of each segment, and that way, if you don't want that, you can just move on past it. And I do timestamps for each one of these segments. So, and like I said, keeping it towards the end of it, all you got to do as soon as you see that chat banter, you go, I don't want this. Go look down the video or podcast description, and you will see the timestamps. And most of them, I think most platforms do hyperlinks these days. So just click and right on past it. But with that, guys, and I do try to give everyone at least one good morning because I do like to say hello. After that, you got to catch my interest or catch my wallet. You can super chat here on YouTube. I think you can on Rumble as well, but it's not like integrated in StreamYard, so I don't like to recommend it because I feel bad because it doesn't let me know when you do that until later, so I may miss that. But if you do want to give me money on Rumble, I won't stop you for sure. But just a little bit warning. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into. Let's start off today. Some of this icebreaker type content, as we say. We've been talking a lot about this recent the Trump assassination attempt in the Secret Service is kind of looking pretty foolish. I think me and Austin looked at the security video. You could see at least one of these guys that we picked out, shot multiple times with people obviously behind him in frame in the video. So no way. I mean, you could literally see the muzzle flash, everything. So it kind of makes you wonder what the hell's going on over there. But kind of on that note, we have apparently a Secret Service officer was what's going on my tongue? Was recently arrested for allegedly masturbating in a hotel hallway, following a woman and forcing her to retreat to her room for safety. That's weird. Miami-Dade deputies said they found Officer John A. Spillman pleasuring himself before his arrest. So they found him pleasuring himself still. So that's wonderful. What an amazing expression to get to have for your booking shot for getting busted for cranking it. I mean, it's almost not as funny because it's like sinister because he went after some broad while jerking it, but it's still pretty humorous. And to add to it, this guy's name is Spillman. Maybe I'm being immature here, but I for one think if there is a God, he probably has a sense of humor. I'm gonna spill it. All right, let's move on. We're not gonna delve too deep into that one. Secret Service does wild shit. Another one that we're not gonna dive too deep into because I don't know how much more context I want on this one. But apparently, Iranian kamikaze dolphins were brought up in a recent press briefing with the Department of War. Apparently they denied that Iran has dolphin suicide bombers, but would not confirm or deny if the U.S. had dolphin suicide bombers. So I do have some clips for you so we can watch this together. Guess they're doing super serious stuff in the Pentagon these days. Kamikaze dolphins.
And I can't confirm or deny whether we have kamikaze dolphins, but I can confirm they don't, ultimately.
All right, and I guess also sharks with laser beams were also mentioned. So here you go.
Can you kind of clarify these reports of kamikaze dolphins that we've heard about?
I haven't heard the kamikaze dolphin thing. It's like sharks with laser beams, right?
I have no idea where this came from. I have no intention of looking deeper into this, but it's great to see they're being super serious as hordes of people are being murdered under their liege. Moving on, apparently, kind of on this, hey, we have Secret Service came and protect the president, but according to Donald Trump, he's saying over in Iran, they have snipers that kill, 10,000 a pop. Each sniper, has scalped like 10K people. That's some top tier shit. We should be probably outsourcing for Iranian protection, perhaps. But with that, here's a little bit more context of what we're talking about here. Apparently, this is a claim Trump made. Let's find out together.
He said recently that if Iranians were armed, they could take over their regime. Do you plan to arm them soon?
Well, I don't want to say that, but yeah, people say, why aren't they protesting? They want to protest, but they don't have any guns. So you could have 200,000 people protesting and have 5 or 6 sick people with guns. And when they start shooting them right between the eyes, and you see a guy fall and another one fall, and you have no guns, very few people would be able to stand there and do it. I mean, I understand. I tell them not to. Don't forget, they killed 42,000 people last month. 42,000 unarmed protesters. They had no guns. So they had a 250,000 people crowd, and they had snipers. They had like 4 or 5 snipers in buildings up high. And you're standing there, and all of a sudden the guy on your left goes down, and somebody. That's what happened with a woman protest. They had 200,000 women protesting a year ago, and everyone thought that was the end of Iran. And then all of a sudden, a woman dropped dead with a bullet right there, always right there. Then another woman dropped, and then the word started to spread, and then there was panic, and then they ran, and so I don't want that to happen. We don't need that, we don't need it. But the only reason that they want to protest so badly, but they don't have weapons. Yeah.
All right. He legit did make that claim. It seems that Trump is saying that, over there in the supposed murders that occurred over in Iran, that, with all the, how many did they say it was? I think they even say in the caption here, it was 42,000, because that's the claim Trump's been going around repeating for a while now, which doesn't even come close to like the highest estimate. So that 42,000 figure is just kind of made up out of whole cloth and is way higher than even like some of the biggest, more respectable estimates. Iran themselves, if I recall, I want to say it was like a few thousand they said they claimed, which, or they said they killed or something. I'm talking out my ass a little bit here. I don't remember the specific figures, but it was, I believe it was short of 10, like significantly short of 10, below 5 perhaps. Still a ton of people, still not cool, although I don't really, still kind of foggy the details of this. There's also we've covered in this show the possibilities of arming these rebels over there, so they may have been not quite as the peaceful protests as they've kind of tried to frame them over here in Western media. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily standing up for the IRGC here, but it is also completely ridiculous what Trump's doing here, saying that 4 or 5 snipers they have posted up for these protests, and then they're just kind of fish in a barrel. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is just his ridiculous idea of how guns work. If you have an area with no, like, yes, don't get me wrong. If you're the security force in a country with no guns, I'm sure it would be like shooting fish in a barrel, but I still do not quite buy that 5 people could kill 42,000 protesters. That seems to be a bit of an overstatement. So I don't know. He's been apt to just completely make shit up to a ridiculous degree these days. Don't know what to make of it. Maybe he's just getting lazier with the propaganda. Who knows? But it sounds like, though, this is probably part of the effort. You can see him kind of angling in some of the rhetoric there of perhaps arming the protesters again. I maybe this will come up in one of our articles that we're going to go through for our foreign policy stuff. But I have heard murmurs of that bit floating up again, as if they're thinking about arming protesters again. So kind of going to a little bit of a softer form of warfare. So that will obviously probably bubble up to some bullshit again. But anyway, so I think that might be kind of what he's getting at. Probably part of why the ridiculous way this is being framed, like, hey, we got to help these people out. They're not armed. They need our help. What can we do? Sounds like what he's getting at. All right, let's get into the chat. Let's say some good mornings, and then we'll get into our foreign policy stuff. Then we'll get into the main stuff of the day. Good morning, Top 3-3. Good morning, retardo. Jenny, say my homie on Colored People Time today. Yeah, sorry, running a little late. Oh well, though. This is not as late as some days. Most days we usually end up going around like noonish. We shoot for 11. We usually get noon. Some days it's even later. Good morning to Tower Gang NPC. Good morning, John Black. Good morning, Bug Fights. Good morning. Saying he likes the hair. Thank you. Appreciate it, or lack thereof. Yes, I did get a cut. Is there like a cat coming around and moving my wire? I feel like this camera keeps moving. Sorry. Anyways, I'm glad you appreciate it. I'm growing it back out before anyone gets an idea. I just needed a reset. My scalp was having, like, I've just done so much shit. I just needed a reset, needed to shave it down to, like, basically almost the roots. Not quite skin, obviously. And then I'm growing it back out. So I'm growing it back out, but I had a lot of weird inconsistencies in length, and my scalp was having some issues, so I figured to take it down. I mean, I had like a couple years ago when I quit smoking, I went through a period of time where I was ripping hair out, so I create like a weird little bald spot that grew back, so I'm not like bald or anything, but I'm saying weird inconsistencies. I also went from having a side part to a mid part, and that caused like a weird lopsided thing, so I just like, fuck it. I'm going to shave it. And then this time I know what I'm going to do. I know how I'm going to style it as it grows. So it's an intentional growing out, but we're starting from the bottom. We're doing a reset. I know there's some people in the crowd have complained before, say it's I look ridiculous with the shaggy hair, whatever. Like, it's almost like an unprofessional. I'm not going to be the Fuentes, guys. If you're looking for the guy with, nice, like, I'm probably gonna have shaggy hair. I'm probably gonna keep up the tank tops. You're not gonna get me in a suit. That's just not me. So before anyone gets too accustomed to the short hair, we're going back long, baby. We're gonna go. I might go mullet. We might go mullet. We'll see. Because I do kind of like keeping it off my ears, which then naturally just ends up with a mullet. Because I don't know, the autist in me, the hair on my ears drives me nuts. So, but I do like the long hair and having being able to style it and stuff. So it'll come back though. That's the beautiful thing about hair. It'll come back. Good morning, Chuck Bam. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Hotep Beavis says, I'm anti-Semitic. I think Hebrew and all tribal Arab languages are garbage. Fair enough. Good morning, Boomer Sooner. Saying hello to everyone. Good morning, Nazis everywhere. He's sharing in Rumble some link to Epstein most famous names investigation Nazi hand gestures. Okay, if you're in Rumble, I guess you can follow that link, see if it's worth anything. We will not be following that right now. Good morning, LTD. Good morning, Derp with Kerp. Good morning, Murder, Death, Kill, one of my favorite names. Cuber says, good lord, looking like a Ken twin. Yeah, okay. I guess this contributes more to the Ken look-alike. I guess me and Ken Silva look like brothers is what people say. I see the similarities. I don't think it's like that stark, but I mean, we're just kind of both pretty generic looking white dudes. But all right, guys, let's go ahead and get into some foreign policy, get into the latest of what's going on. Got a little bit of a thicker one for you guys today since I wasn't here. So we have a little bit of catch up on the foreign policy front. Jumping into it, there was an attack on a UAE oil facility, and according to Iran, they're calling this the result of U.S. adventurism in the Strait of Hormuz. So it looks like, it's escalation dominance is what this sounds like to me, because we're going to get into why we're not responding either, which I think that's great that we're not responding. But it looks like Iran is now picking their shots. So I don't know. Let's dig a little bit into this. Iranian media report on Monday that the attack on oil facilities in the UAE's port of Fujairah was the result of U.S. adventurism in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran had no pre-planned intention to attack the Fujairah oil facilities, an Iranian military official told the Iranian broadcaster IRIB. The incident resulted from U.S. military adventurism to create an illegal passage through restricted areas of the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. must be held accountable, the official added. The comments suggest that the strikes on the Fujairah oil facilities were Iran's response to the U.S.'s new attempt to get commercial ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, though so far there's been no official comment from Tehran about the attacks in the UAE, which I can't remember. Real quick, if we didn't cover this on Monday, I can't remember if we did or not. I feel like we did. Just a reminder, we had this Operation Freedom where we're supposedly going to be escorting. Oh, we did talk about this, actually. I'm recalling vividly now. But they're escorting. They were supposedly going to be escorting these. They didn't even say escort. I forget what the term they used. What it was is they were going to assist these civilian ships, these commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz, essentially using their, the Air Force, the Navy, whatever. Then come to find out after they floated that out, then they're like, well, we'll be in the vicinity and we'll give you some tips. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's useless. Well, I guess as a result of that, Iran bombed an oil facility. So obviously not a fan of that. We wish we'd stop the bombing, but they were not having it. The UAE said that its air defenses engaged 19 Iranian missiles and drones on Monday, and according to sources speaking with CNN, an Israeli Iron Dome system that was secretly deployed to the Gulf Arab state was used to intercept projectiles. At least 3 people, Indian nationals, were injured by the attacks in the Fujairah oil facilities. Trump announced on Sunday night that U.S. forces would guide commercial ships out of the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. So yeah, that was the term they used, guide. U.S. CENTCOM claimed that 2 U.S. Navy destroyers transited the strait and enabled 2 U.S. flag commercial ships to make the passage. The Iran Navy said that it fired missiles and drones at U.S. warships, and CENTCOM also claimed that its forces destroyed 6 Iranian boats, which was denied by Iranian officials, which we will come back to, because you're like, whoa, Jose, you said... but the escalation dominance, this is their response. They destroyed some Iranian boats. We'll cut back to that. The attacks in the UAE would mark Tehran's most significant response yet to U.S. military escalation since the ceasefire ended the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign against Iran. Iranian analysts tell me that Tehran's warning shots at U.S. warships and the strikes on the UAE reveal Iran's new posture. If Trump plans to restart the war, Iran will not wait for Trump to do so before it retaliates. It will strike preemptively in a measured way to deter Trump. Trita Parsi, an Iran expert and executive vice president of the Quincy Institute, wrote on X. Now about those vessels we were just talking about. Well, those were cargo vessels, not IRGC boats, according to Iran. To be fair, Iran's Tasnim news agency reported the U.S. attack in the Strait of Hormuz on Monday hit cargo vessels, not boats, belonging to Iran's IRGC, contradicting claims from U.S. CENTCOM. CENTCOM said that its forces destroyed 6 Iranian naval boats that attempted to interfere with commercial shipping, and Trump later put the number of boats that were sunk at 7. An Iranian military source told Tasnim that after an investigation, Iran found that no IRGC combat vessels were hit and that the U.S. targeted 2 boats that were traveling from Kasab, a port city in Oman, to the coast of Oman, and said the attack killed 5 civilians. The investigation revealed that U.S. forces had attacked and fired on 2 small cargo boats transporting goods belonging to civilians. The boats were traveling from Kasab along the coast of Oman toward Iranian shores. The attack resulted in the deaths of 5 civilian passengers. So far, the U.S. has responded to the Iranian allegations, and during a press briefing on Tuesday morning, Hexas stuck to CENTCOM's account describing the vessels the U.S. military targeted as 6 attack boats that he said were dealt with before they were any real threat to the American military vessels they were approaching, which, before they were any real threat, makes it sound more like, well, maybe they really weren't a fucking threat and you murdered them. The incident on Monday came after Trump announced the U.S. would guide commercial ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, a military escalation he dubbed Project Freedom. We have, as I was talking about escalation dominance, which, to be very clear, I'm glad this is how this is playing out, but I'm not trying to encourage the establishment to behave any differently, but we have the top U.S. general saying Iran's attacks are below the threshold of restarting a bombing campaign. So even though it was clearly, I think it's fair to say that was more of a preemptive strike from Iran on that facility, because we weren't really doing anything. We already had the blockade going. It was more just kind of Trump running his mouth, and that doesn't look like anything actually really happened, and they were just guiding people. So I think it was more Iran. It sounds like more Iran just had enough of the fucking bullshit. And they go, well, fuck you. We're tired of your nonsense. And I guess you could kind of probably class that as preemptive. I think that was probably preemptive on their part. So I think if you're looking for a model for escalation dominance, this might be it. U.S. military's top general said on Tuesday Iran's recent attacks in the region were below the threshold of the U.S. restarting its bombing campaign against the Islamic Republic, as the U.S. continues to downplay the flare-ups in the Strait of Hormuz that occurred a day earlier. Since the ceasefire was announced, Iran has fired at commercial vessels 9 times and seized 2 container ships. They've attacked U.S. forces more than 10 times, all below the threshold of restarting major combat operations at this point. Chief of Staff General Dan Kane told reporters at a press briefing at the Pentagon. So, cool. I'm good with that. And now, to top it all off, Trump is saying Operation Freedom, and we're pausing that. No more guiding the ships out of the strait. He said on Tuesday night on Truth Social that the U.S. military operation, Trump said, to guide commercial ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, which he dubbed Project Freedom, has been paused. Based on the requests of Pakistan and other countries, a tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and additionally the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships to the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. In response to Trump's announcement, Iranian official told Dropsite News reporter Jeremy Scahill the post was riddled with falsehoods and that Trump's operation to liberate the Strait of Hormuz failed completely. The official also reaffirmed Tehran's position that direct talks won't happen until the U.S. blockade is lifted. We will not participate in direct negotiations until the United States formally announces the end of the blockade, which they've been consistent on throughout. Pakistan has passed messages between the U.S. and Iran, and late last week, Tehran had presented a new proposal to the U.S. that, according to Iranian media, was focused on bringing a permanent end to the conflict and other hostilities in the region, including the Israeli war in Lebanon. Wouldn't hold your breath there. Iran said on Sunday that it was reviewing a U.S. response to the proposal, but then Trump announced Project Freedom. So kind of to my point earlier, him just flapping his gums, fucking up all this diplomacy. Scahill said the U.S. did send a message to Iran through Pakistan indicating the U.S. does not intend to carry out direct military action in the Persian Gulf and is seeking direct talks with Iran. Also noted the U.S. and Israel had attacked Iran twice before while the U.S. was claiming it was negotiating. Trump's announcement came after Iran made it clear it would respond to U.S. attempts to guide commercial ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, and the two sides exchanged fire on Monday, as we just talked about. Marco Rubio is framing this whole situation now as a defensive operation. I have a feeling that may have to do with the War Powers resolution. So he said on Tuesday, the U.S. is now engaged in a defensive operation against Iran as the Trump administration is attempting to reframe the war the U.S. and Israel launched against the Islamic Republic on February 28th. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation, and what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first, Rubio told reporters. He also declared that Operation Epic Fury, the code name the U.S. gave to the war, is over, and the U.S. is now on to Project Freedom. So see what they're doing here? This is just an operation, and now we're on to another thing. It's not even an operation. It's a project. Referring to the U.S. military operation to guide ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, the President Trump announced later that that's been paused. So hell, even that's been paused. We're two operations ahead now. So it's not even the same war, guys. A source close to President Trump made clear in comments to Axios that one purpose of Project Freedom was to make it appear that Iran is the aggressor, even though all the events in Strait of Hormuz have been a result of the war that was started by the U.S. and Israel. So see, you started over, you call it some other new thing, and now we're starting Project Freedom, and you can reframe it here. It's like, oh, well, if we just forget about all that other stuff that happened, then this makes sense. The source told Axios that Project Freedom was the beginning of a process that could lead to a confrontation with the Iranians. The humanitarian mission meant that if the Iranians do something, they will be the bad guys, and we will have the legitimacy to act. Rubio's comments are also part of the Trump's administration maneuvering around the 1973 War Powers Resolution, which is kind of what I was getting at there, which was an attempt to rein in the executive branch's disregard of the Constitution's requirement that Congress has the sole power to declare law. The law doesn't supersede the Constitution, but includes a 60-day deadline to end unauthorized military action, which has been interpreted to give the president 60 days to wage war without congressional authorization. So we're past those 60 days, basically. I think we're either they expired on Friday. So we are past it. We are past that. So now they're reframing it as, oh, well, now we're in a defensive operation. So they're trying to divorce the previous stuff going on from what's going on now by calling it a different thing. Unfortunately, it'll probably work. The War Powers deadline expired on Friday, and the U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth made the novel claim that the clock stops if there is a ceasefire. So even if you do go right back to Operation Epic Fury, I think in their head they're like, well, if we really want to even do this even further, you're like, well, we kind of restarted, so a whole new 60 days. I don't know, but though U.S. forces are still clearly engaged in hostilities against Iran since the U.S. is enforcing a blockade on Iranian ports. So that is a key thing. This blockade is a military action. So, technically, there's no separating these things is ridiculous. We've had this blockade that connects both of these things. There have been military actions being performed by the United States consistently through this entire whatever you want to call it. Trying to give it two separate names and trying to create some sort of demarcation to point, well, now it's a different thing. No. And you can't frame it as defensive while you're engaged in an engaged in a military action. A blockade is an offensive military action in and of itself. You can't just be well, because we're already here, now it's defensive. That's unless you play these weird time games, I guess they're trying to do. We're well, forget about all that stuff before. Well, all that stuff before is super important to what's going on. Rubio also said during the briefing the goal was to get the strait back to the way it was before the U.S. and U.S. and Israel launched the war, acknowledging the U.S. objective was to reverse the consequences of the conflict it started. So, moving on, we've got murder on the high seas again. They killed 2 in the Caribbean, so blew up another extrajudicial execution, another murder on the high sea. We're not going to watch this one, but here's another grainy video, another snuff video for those who crave violence. Here you go. This is in the Caribbean Sea. No evidence to back it up. Yep. Let's see. What's the tally at these days now? They were up to killing 188 people. Isn't that wonderful? Just murder, murder, murder. Moving on, and we also have murder in Somalia, although this one's a little bit more gray because we never really know what's going on. Who knows? Maybe there could be some semi-semblance of a justification militarily, but we don't ever really get any information except for where it happens. I think it's pretty fair to say it's straight up murder with the previous example, but who knows? Maybe with these bombs in Somalia, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine a scenario in my head where it would be appropriate to be bombing Somalia like this, but I have my skepticism. I have my doubts. The U.S. military does not have the greatest track record, so while they're not giving information, I have a hard time buying this as being benevolent murder. So they bombed him for the 62nd time. Let's see what information we got here. Now, where did it happen? It had in the Puntland region, 46 miles southeast of the Gulf of Aden, port of Bosaso, in a remote mountain region where the U.S. backs local government forces against ISIS fighters in caves. So we're bombing ISIS people in caves. Well, okay, well, I mean, generally I assume they're probably shitty people. What do I know? But at least this seems a little bit better than just randomly murdering people that you think may supposedly have drugs in the high seas. This seems a little bit, I guess I feel a little less bad about this one, but still not great, especially considering the amount. We're setting records. 62. The previous record is 124. I think this puts us well on track to break it. So I think they're going to beat it. I think Trump's going to keep beating his record year after year after year. We'll see. It'd be cool if they stopped wasting our money on this. We also got a little report on Israeli-U.S. relations. Apparently, we have a bunch of Democrats that are trying to get the Trump administration to acknowledge Israel having nukes, which is pretty fucking big deal, actually. 30 members of Congress demanded recognition of the long-standing open secret. So that's actually, to me, that's pretty fucking wild. I mean, even with the Democrats being as anti-Israel as they are these days, it seems like whenever it comes down to like a vote or any sort of like anything of substance, like especially something like this, you usually only see like onesies, twosies that really. So this is something. More than 24 House Democrats demanded that the Trump administration acknowledge Israel's possession of nukes in a letter revealed by the Washington Post Tuesday. The missive represents a rare public comment from U.S. leaders about Israel's nuclear arsenal, which reportedly now consists of about 90 warheads. It comes amid a war with Iran, premised largely on the need to destroy Tehran's civilian nuclear program and prevent the possibility that the country could pursue a nuclear weapon. We cannot develop coherent non-proliferation policy for the Middle East while maintaining a policy of official silence about the nuclear weapons capabilities of one party central to the ongoing conflict. The lawmakers, led by Representative Joaquin Castro, Democrat in Texas, wrote, U.S. has long positioned itself as a leading opponent of nuclear proliferation, but when Israel secretly developed nukes of its own, the Nixon administration decided to accept the secret program and protect Israel from international criticism. The policy of official silence developed into a broad bipartisan consensus undergirded by widespread support among American elites for Israeli security. Now that pro-Israel sentiment is fading, particularly among progressives, some Democrats see an opportunity to accept reality. You can check out the rest of this over at Responsible Statecraft. But yeah, interesting development. That seems like a significant amount. Like, obviously, I don't think anything is going to really happen there, but that's quite a break in the dam, it seems like. Then over in Lebanon, speaking of Israel, more murder, heavy fighting in southern Lebanon as Hezbollah attacks Israeli positions. Heavy fighting was reported in the area of Deir Suryan, on the border between Israel and Lebanon and well inside the Israeli-occupied Yellow Line area of southern Lebanon. Israel reportedly advanced troops into the town and Hezbollah attacked them. Details are still emerging about the exchange of fire, but the IDF reported 2 Israeli soldiers were moderately wounded in the incident and were taken to a hospital. A Hezbollah video also showed a drone attacking and damaging an Israeli tank, though it's unclear if that video was from today or a previous incident. Israel responded with new evacuation orders covering a number of Lebanese towns, ordering their populations to flee at least 1 kilo away and into open areas for their own safety. 2 distinct sets of evacuation orders were issued, one notably including the Christian village of Debel. Debel has twice come into media attention because Israeli forces within the town have been seen destroying plainly civilian infrastructure like solar panels, and earlier in the conflict, an image was released of an Israeli soldier smashing a statue of Jesus with a sledgehammer. While Israel has repeatedly presented itself as only fighting Hezbollah and no way attacking broader civilian infrastructure in Lebanon, the repeated targeting of Debel, which seemingly had no connection to Hezbollah, even notionally suggests the opposite. Indeed, last week, commanders told the Israeli media outlet Haaretz that their mission was effectively destroy Shiite villages to displace the Shiite population from southern Lebanon. Even this seems to narrow the scope of the destruction too much. However, as Debel shows that Lebanese Christians are hardly immune to such destruction. Israel itself has confirmed that there were 500 strikes against Lebanon since the ceasefire went into effect. Once again, we have a ceasefire going on here. Just a reminder, because you wouldn't think we did as much murder as we report here, but Israel itself, the Israeli army, has reported that it hit an estimated 500 areas in Lebanon since April 17th. During all of this, I guess they've killed more than 100 rescue workers since March. They have been known for doing these double taps, so nothing new there. We've kind of taken up that a little bit too. A lot of people don't realize in the Manob thing, there were lots of reports of a double tap and maybe even a triple tap. I think the double taps basically confirmed. The triple taps, I think, a little bit more shaky. But monkey see, monkey do. Monkey poop all over you, and now we poop just like Israel does. Israel prepares for resumption of full-scale bombing campaign in Gaza. So I'm not surprised. Kicking it back up. We've kind of been calling this. It looks like things have been picking back up in Gaza. As Lebanon gets more scrutiny, then they kind of just pick things up a little bit in Gaza to redirect some of the attention. Always somehow cranking up the murder, just maybe moving the murder around a little bit here and there. The Israeli military is preparing for the resumption of its full-scale bombing campaign in Gaza, Middle East Eye report on Monday, citing Israel's army radio. The Israeli military has constantly violated the U.S.-backed ceasefire deal that was signed in early October 2025 with daily attacks across Gaza, killing at least 832 Palestinians, according to the latest numbers from Gaza's health ministry. The reporting from Israeli media suggests Israel is preparing a major escalation back to the levels of the height of the genocidal war, when dozens or hundreds of Palestinians were being killed every day. According to the Army radio report, senior Israeli military officials are pushing for the resumption of fighting, saying the best time to defeat Hamas is now. The report cited Hamas's refusal to disarm as the reason to restart the full-scale bombing campaign, as Hamas has insisted it will not discuss the issue until the first phase of the ceasefire is actually implemented, which, once again, super fair. Every single time this comes up, it's like, I don't know how we're supposed to come down on Israel's side here. That's super fair. There's been a ceasefire that Israel has never once fucking honored, and they keep wanting to go on to some other phase, and they've done this with Lebanon, and they've done this with Hamas, and both of them, throughout this have gone, okay, well, do the first thing first, and we're totally open to doing other things. And then they never do the first thing, which is stop murdering. They can't even just get the first part of a ceasefire, and they can completely fuck it up every time. Middle East Eye reported a day earlier the U.S. and Israel had rejected a proposal from Hamas and other Palestinian factions to link disarmament to a path toward a Palestinian state and security guarantees. The Army radio report acknowledged that Israel recently escalated its strikes in Gaza and pushed the yellow line further west, giving the IDF control of nearly 60% of Gaza, 2 clear violations of the ceasefire deal. At the start of the truce, Israeli troops occupied about 53% of Gaza. So can't even do the basics of a ceasefire, which, once again, is don't murder. Continuing on, apparently they killed 3 Palestinians the other day. This was on Monday. They killed 3 Palestinians. One was 42-year-old Musa al-Biad. He was killed by an Israeli attack in Al-Altra, a neighborhood in the northern city of Beit Lahia. Later in the day, a young man was reported killed and others were wounded by an Israeli drone strike north of the Burej refugee camp in central Gaza. Monday night, Israeli strike targeting the Zatoun neighborhood in Gaza City killed 1 Palestinian and wounded others. And then yesterday, Tuesday, they killed a 15-year-old in Gaza. So more murder. The boy was killed by an Israeli attack on a police station in northern Gaza, which also wounded several policemen. Gaza's police have become a frequent target of the Israeli military in recent months as IDF seeks to disrupt Hamas's control of the area. Israeli strike targeting a police vehicle in Gaza last month killed a 3-year-old boy. The boy was among at least 3 Palestinians who were killed by Israeli attacks in Gaza on Tuesday. 1 Palestinian was killed and several were wounded by Israeli strike in the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood of Gaza City. Another Palestinian was killed by Israeli tank shelling in central Gaza. So more murder, but maybe a little bit looking up on Russia, Ukraine. So this is maybe good. Let's dig through this. We got Russia and Ukraine declares ceasefires that will begin on different days. So it seems like they're competing on ceasefires. So that sounds positive. Russia said on Monday that it would observe a ceasefire with Ukraine on May 8th and May 9th to observe Victory Day when Russia celebrates the Soviet Union's victory against Nazi Germany in World War II. But it's unclear if the truce will hold, as Zelensky responded by declaring a ceasefire that will start earlier. Okay, what do you... I mean, this kind of sounds like just trying to control the frame. That's what this sounds like to me. Like two leaders, because Putin comes out and goes, "Oh, we're going to have a ceasefire," and then Zelensky's like, "The fuck you are! I'm going to have a ceasefire." And so he schedules it even before he does. That's what it feels like. It says, as of today, there has been no official appeal to Ukraine regarding the modality of a cessation of hostilities as being claimed on Russian social media. Zelensky wrote in X, "We believe that human life is far more valuable than any anniversary celebration. In this regard, we are announcing a ceasefire regime starting at 0000 on the night of May 5th to 6th. And the time left until that moment is realistic to ensure that silence takes effect. We will act reciprocally starting from that moment," the Ukrainian leader added. Okay, this is pretty positive, though, because, how I'm reading this so far, because so we have Putin comes out with, "Hey, we're going to do it for this whatever day," and then Ukraine, and to give Zelensky some ups here, I kind of like this, actually. That goes, whoa, fuck your day. How about we just go into a ceasefire? And that's how we're going to behave for now. Unfortunately, Zelensky's not really in a great position of leverage, but so far as framing it to kind of look good, I like this. You go, hey, okay, well then we'll do it. Or you want to do that? Why trivialize human lives? Why not just do it now? And if you stop shooting at us, and we have no need to attack you. Russia's ceasefire declaration came with a warning that if Ukrainian attacks targeted Moscow during Victory Day celebrations, the Russian military will respond with major attacks on the Ukrainian capital. In response, Zelensky suggesting Ukraine could hit a Russian military parade that will take place in Moscow on May 9th. All right, that's it. That's all we have for that. So I don't know. Hopeful. That'd be cool. We'll see how these things work out. Let's roll in the chat, say some more good mornings, and then we'll get into the first main segment of the day. We'll get into the J6 pipe bomb. Let's check in on you guys. What are you guys up to? Good morning. Hey, say what now? Good morning. Good morning. Tom says, "I've seen brothers that look less alike than Jose and Ken." Okay. Good morning, OG Matzo Balls. Anyone have Jared's channel from last night's Already Dead? I want to see this Jews in China video. I believe it's Dylan Farnham. I believe Dylan and then space Farnham, Farnum. That's his buddy's channel. He's not Dylan Farnham, to be clear, but I guess he does a regular thing on there. Yeah, he did have a, like I said, I checked that out recently on his channel. The good chunk of it. I think I watched well over an hour of his breakdown of Jews and how they've proliferated in China. Pretty interesting stuff. I'm a big fan of Jared. He's the dude. Good morning, Marnamat. Good morning. What else? Good morning, Bobo. Once again, congrats for another little one. Everyone chime in the chat and say congrats on the little guy, Bobo. Bobo got a third kiddo, so congrats. Good morning, Fire Pixie. Good morning. Let me see what else we got here. Bobo spam in the chat, but I'm here for it. Jesus Christ, you guys really are spamming the chat. It's the same people. So I'm trying to catch up. Hit that like button, says Bobo. Yes, please, people. Help a brother out. Boost this shit. Man, you guys talking about chat, talking about hair stuff. All right, we're all caught up. You guys are just all the same people spamming the chat. All right, guys, let's get into this right here. Let's get into the latest on, well, the latest. That's like my go-to like segue. This isn't the latest. This isn't latest at all. We've kind of beat this bit to death, but we're gonna keep beating it. There was one thing that I said a couple times. I just feel like I didn't express it properly. Maybe I did. I haven't rewatched the episode where we had the Silva versus Baker, a blowout or whatever. I haven't rewatched it, so maybe I actually did. But to me, I felt like I didn't do a good job of expressing what I was trying to say. Multiple times I kind of came back to like almost be dismissive of like the whole person of one, for those who recall with he's got to back up a little bit. The J6 pipe bomber story. In that story, the blazes, like there's kind of a couple main things, and I don't even think they would really dispute this on me. There's like two main, I guess you could say, pieces of evidence. Even that's kind of stretching the definitions of evidence. And you have this gate analysis, and then we have this whole conflagration of this person of interest 1, person of interest 2, person of interest 3, and generally speaking, the Kyle Seraphin investigation that he was doing, I guess, during that time on behalf of the FBI. So these are two separate things, and the reason why they're interconnected is because it becomes that we're about to get into the weeds of some of this. But the whole person of 1, 2, 3, whatever the fuck, this kind of comes back to like how it ties into the gate analysis is that, oh shit, once you find out that, that one of the people they were surveilling in this person of interest 1, 2, 3, whatever, happened to live right next to, like smack dab right next to Shawnee Kirkhoff, the who Blaze accused of being like the pipe bomber, essentially. They lived right next. So you go, oh shit, what a fucking crazy ass coincidence. And the point I kept trying to make is that it almost doesn't fucking matter. And we're going to kind of spell it out even more so there. But really what I was getting at is, if you understand the logic here, like you go, if all things are true here, assuming the gate analysis, assuming the PO 1, 2, 3, investigation, both those are completely legit, well-grounded, and both exist at the same time, that is pretty crazy. That is insane that you have this gate analysis on this chick, and also she just so happens to live right smack dab next to one of the major people that they were investigating. And it sounds like a lot, but you go, whoa. Keep in mind, the thing connecting these two things is a coincidence, and it's also reliant on that they're both legit. Furthermore, one thing I don't think I did a good job of expressing is reliant for that to be significant information that should in any way sway your beliefs on the matter, on the truthfulness of something, is on the gate analysis. It literally all comes down to the gate analysis because you're connecting the two via coincidence. So like, if the gate analysis is bunk, then you just have the PO1, PO2, PO3 thing, and Shawnee Kirkhoff being next to this guy is completely irrelevant. What does it matter that some bitch is next to them? That you don't have the gate analysis at this point. That doesn't exist. It's just some broad that you seem to be suspicious of for some reason. Maybe. So that's super weak. It's the most weak of coincidences. Like, okay, he lives next to a chick. Okay, everybody has neighbors. Now, if you add in the chick also has the gate analysis legit, obviously we beat the gate analysis to death in the show, and the thing comes down to the gate analysis is being upheld, according to Steve Baker, on a... How did he frame this? It's essentially a fucking Fed gave it to him. We can parse words. That's kind of what... but a Fed gave it to him. He won't say who, which is fair. You don't have to out your sources. But this is what everything hinges on, is this gate analysis. A gate analysis that he does no copy of, so he can no way can procure it for anyone out there in the wide world to be able to verify this whatsoever. Sorry, somebody's mowing out there. I hope that's not too loud for you guys. But yeah, it's all hinged on just, it's literally a trust me, bro. And a lot of people when we did this were kind of framing it as if we were being ridiculous and an unreasonable level of requiring evidence. But it's like it's literally nothing but a trust me, bro. And I get it. Reporters do use anonymous sources sometimes, but it's really only should be used to maybe flesh out some things. It shouldn't really ever be, and even if you did use it as like your primary thing, it should be at the very least presented in a way to where like there's no like condescending expectation of your audience that they should believe this, because it's like, why would they believe this? This is an anonymous source from you. You're literally just asking them to trust you, which, I mean, maybe you have built up some level of trust with your audience, but I actually think that's improper. Even the most trusted of journalists, like, I don't trust Ken Silva, and I don't mean that in a way that I'm saying he's like a glowy or something like that. I don't need to trust him. I don't trust fucking anyone, really. Like, I mean, that could sound dark, but I guess more meaning like a trust/verify kind of way. Like, I don't need to trust somebody like a Ken Silva. I can read his reporting, and he bears it out for me. Yes, he may use anonymous sources here and there, but even then I interpret that as that's an anonymous source. That's a degree of credibility with which I can take it. I mean, that maybe that can flesh out my understanding of something, but that's that. But he usually provides enough receipts to where you don't need to trust him. This the Baker story, the Blaze story. You got to trust him. There is completely based on trust, and someone that has nowhere come close to earning it, in my opinion. So I wanted to, here's an article that I figured we'd go through. It kind of breaks down some of the PO1, PO2, PO3 stuff. And so we can kind of spell this out. But that's kind of the broad strokes is kind of what I really want to drive at, because I do think that matters, and for some reason I just felt like there's a point that we let escape us there. So it's like, once you throw out all that, it's like literally you have nothing but a trust me bro. And if you keep trying to bring up this coincidence, it's irrelevant, because that coincidence is also held up on that very same exact trust me bro. So let's get into this. This is from FX Regan. He's a former police officer, retired FBI agent. He was a part of SWAT team. I guess he writes some fiction these days. Former corporate security executive, now a full-time author and licensed PI. So he's another one of these people out there who's gotten pretty interested in it. So he wrote a piece on the two doors theory, is what he's referring to this as. I should probably change the title to that. I didn't even notice the two doors theory. That sounds a lot better for my titling of the show today than just boring old J6 pipe bombs. So I'll probably throw that in there. Just a little bit of a note to myself. But let's go through this Substack of FX. Now, this is somebody who's coming from probably more of an establishment perspective. This is a guy who, sounds like he retired from the FBI. He seems a bit of a company man. But I've already read this piece. So like I said, I know the show is sometimes a dump, but we kind of process this stuff together. I've already read this one. So I do know kind of the perspective he's coming from, and I think that kind of grants it more respectability here. So, but once again, kind of to my point, there's no trust me bro here. He's just kind of laying out a perfect argument. So let's read this. This is, like I said, FX Regan. This is over on the Regan Revolution, if you do want to go check out his Substack. He says, I've written 8 lengthy articles about the J6, now referred to as the January 5th or J5 pipe bomb case. I'm strongly considering writing a book on this case someday because of how interesting I find developments. There's a long way to go, however, as we follow 2 significant trials associated with the case. One is a criminal prosecution of Brian Cole Jr., who is charged with several federal felonies related to being the accused bomber. The other is a civil case by former Capitol Police Officer Shawnee Kirkhoff against the Blaze and 2 of their former writers, Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman, who she accuses of falsely identifying her as a bomber in a November 8th, 2025 article. You should review some of my other articles for background, but briefly, part of the Fedsurrection conspiracy is that the pipe bombs put down on J5 were supposed to divert law enforcement on J6 and help ensure chaos the next day, leading to the downfall of Trump once and for all. Spoiler alert, the bombs were discovered 17 hours after being placed, even though they were not well hidden and had 30-minute timers that failed to detonate. Occam's razor points to an incompetent bomber and a crappy bomb search by law enforcement, not a conspiracy. One of the more interesting aspects of the Fedsurrection concept is what I'm calling the 2 doors theory. Here are the details and some thoughts. Early in the investigation, there were 3 people known as person of interest 1, 2, and 3. PO1, I'm going to call him PO1. It's actually POI1, but that's a mouthful. Just PO1 was the then unknown pipe bomber. PO2 was an individual visiting the Washington, D.C. area from the Midwest who was in town for J6 related events. He was staying with a friend, POI 3, at a condo in Falls Church, Virginia, on the morning of J5, 7 to 9 hours before the hooded pipe bomber is seen on video. PO2 was seen taking pictures in the area where the pipe bombs were eventually found on J6. Not exact, but close. PO2 is then seen entering a metro station near the Capitol, where he rode to Falls Church and got in a vehicle still well before the pipe bombs were put down. The metro card he used came back to PO3, the friend he was staying with briefly. When the FBI discovered this, they considered him a person of interest and instituted surveillance on the residence of POI 3 on January 12th and January 13, 2021. One of the surveillance agents, Kyle Seraphin, who has since been fired for the FBI for unrelated reasons, hosts a podcast where Steve Baker is a frequent guest. Much of Seraphin's podcast every day features anti-FBI rhetoric. Seraphin says he does not know why the surveillance was terminated, but he believes it was because Mrs. Kirchhoff was being protected by government actors as part of the so-called Fedsurrection. Actually, it's Miss Kirchhoff. Just want to be... I fucked up and said Mrs. So she's single out there, guys. Works for the CIA, so be careful. But then again, all girls are glowies, so... He went on to say that his request to interview the people associated with PO3 when surveillance was pulled was denied by the FBI. Whatever his thoughts, they were not relevant to the investigation because he was a full-time surveillance agent, not a case or lead agent. So this is what I'm kind of getting at with FX's perspective is interesting here, because these are some things that you just take like, oh, okay, Kyle Seraphin said this, and you're like, why wouldn't they let him do this? That kind of makes sense to me. So I guess it's saying that Kyle, said he wanted to interview these people. He said his request was denied. And as FX is pointing out here, he's like, well, Kyle was a surveillance agent. He was not a case agent. He was not a lead agent. So he says right here, Seraphin also knows that surveillance agents don't conduct interviews because their positions are covert. So, Kyle was a covert, surveillance agent, which, a little bit of a glow. With the covert thing, like, okay. But anyways, not to get off kilter here, but anyways, I thought that's interesting. He kind of points out something you wouldn't really even know unless you had worked this sort of case before as FBI or something like I wouldn't really know the difference between a case, lead, surveillance, and their specific roles and how. So as he says, it wouldn't really make sense for Kyle to interview these people. So saying oh my God, they wouldn't let Kyle interview him. It's well, okay. So an interesting but seemingly unrelated fact we now know is that Miss Kirchhoff, the Capitol police officer, lived in the condo/townhouse right next to PO3. Without fully explaining, both Baker and Seraphin continue to believe this is related to the Fedsurrection plot and Miss Kirchhoff. How? Neither Baker nor Seraphin will say specifically. They hint a lot. In the original version of The Blaze's November 8th, 2025 article naming Miss Kirchhoff as the pipe bomb suspect, Baker wrote, the FBI tied a DC Metro Rail Smart Trip card allegedly used by the pipe bomb suspect to an Air Force civilian employee, but determined that while the man purchased the card, he did not use it. PO3 is the Air Force civilian, and the man who used the card is PO2. The Blaze then secretly changed the paragraph to read, the FBI tied a DC Metro Rail Smart Trip card allegedly used by a person of interest. In other words, the Blaze knew very quickly that PO2 was not the pipe bomber. Recently, Baker was fired from the Blaze for refusing to temper his public comments about Miss Kirchhoff, and Hanneman resigned. We know PO2 is clearly not Miss Kirchhoff. PO2 is from out of town. It would not know the area surrounding the Capitol better than Miss Kirchhoff, who had worked there for 3 to 4 years by J5. So he highly likely was not helping her surveil the Capitol. And if Miss Kirchhoff needed an accomplice to do something 7 to 9 hours before she put down the pipe bombs, why would she recruit somebody staying or living temporarily next door to her? None of this makes sense. According to both Baker and Seraphin, the fact Miss Kirchhoff lived next door to PO3 was not known until November 7th, 2025, the day before the Blaze article was posted, which Baker has said was already set to print. It became known to them only because Baker was sharing the fact he determined where Miss Kirchhoff had lived back in 2021 with Seraphin, who realized he was doing a surveillance there at approximately the same time. So PO2 and PO3 were never an initial factor in Baker's theory that Miss Kirchhoff was a J5 pipe bomber, and they only became important a day before the publication of the Blaze's original article. Both Baker and Seraphin would go on to give this coincidence considerable weight, calling it more than 1 trillion to 1 chance Ms. Kirchhoff lived next to a residence Serafin was surveilling relating to the pipe bomb investigation. For that to be true, you must believe in both Baker's anonymous gate analysis. That is how Baker concluded Ms. Kirchhoff was a pipe bomber, and come up with some reason that PO2 and PO3 adds to the plot. If you don't believe in the gate analysis, and many/most people don't, there is no coincidence whatsoever. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at, and I felt like I failed when we talked about it on the show. We got somebody's coughing up a hairball. If you don't believe in the gay now, one of 2,400 Capitol police officers who all live somewhere in the D.C. metro area lived next to a residence that was one of many early leads about the pipe bomber that was quickly resolved. End of story. Even if you do believe the gate analysis and that Ms. Kirchhoff is the pipe bomber, and that some elements in the FBI knew this because she was part of the larger Fedsurrection conspiracy, the PO2 and PO3 leads were clearly separate from anything to do with Ms. Kirchhoff. And PO2 and PO3 who Serafin's team was sent to surveil, not Ms. Kirchhoff. In fact, both Baker and Serafin blamed the surveillance team getting pulled on January 14th on a holy fuck moment when some elements inside the FBI realized she might be identified, which can only be true only if some elements of the FBI were aware of Ms. Kirchhoff's role in the plot while others were not. One of many inconsistencies in Baker and Serafin's theories is variously claiming a very small number of high-level people, as few as 6 to 8, are in on the Fedsurrection conspiracy, and contradicting themselves by claiming numerous low-level Capitol Police and Secret Service officers were in on it too. This conflict comes up again when Ms. Kirchhoff is confronted by the FBI 5 years later and asked about her role. Serafin and Baker are quick to note that even though the surveillance was pulled on January 14th, PO2 and PO3 were not interviewed and cleared by the FBI until January 19th, which they think proves an inside conspiracy. I disagree. He says, I think, and Serafin should know that once identified, PO2 and PO3's locations were likely traced via their communication devices and other means, and the FBI knew they were not near the Capitol between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on the evening of January 5th, and thus not suspects. And January 19th is when a congressional committee report, not the FBI, says they were interviewed. But now, by the way, once again, I do want to reiterate, obviously I'm reading FX's work. This is not my own. He does have a slightly different take. It seems like he does put a lot more skepticism on the Fedsurrection idea than I do. But he still has some good or a lot of good points, especially in the illogical ways with which the Bakers of the world are pursuing this angle. So, and I think that there has something to do with it. I mean, he seems to poo-poo the idea of a conspiracy a little bit more than I might, but either way, we can glean some interesting information from FX. As I have noted in other articles, a recent revelation in Baker's J5 pipe bomb theory is that Ms. Kirchhoff was an unwitting dupe in the larger deep state conspiracy by being told she was putting down the pipe bombs as part of a fake training exercise. This does not square with the two doors theory either. Rationally, she would have told the FBI what transpired, including she was told putting down the pipe bombs was part of a training exercise when she was approached in November of 2025 and questioned about being the pipe bomber, which itself only happened because Baker brought his suspicions about her to the office of the Director of National Intelligence who notified the FBI, which... that's weird, but we'll come back to that. Baker, as he is wanting to do, covers his incontinency with yet another conspiracy theory, which is that Ms. Kirchhoff was rewarded with a job at the CIA for keeping silent, even though it was a job she applied months before the election and for which she was not hired until months after J6. Baker, Serafin, and others put significant weight on the fact Ms. Kirchhoff lived next door to PO3, where PO2 was staying briefly, but they can't exactly say why it matters, except it allegedly proves a conspiracy. Baker said in a podcast on May 24th, I think that was mine, 2026, that that was April, my bad, that he recently interviewed PO2 for 5 hours, but in typical Baker fashion, he said additional details about the interview were coming. I believe if anything significant came from the interview, we'd know it by now. The two doors theory is just another smokescreen by people invested in the entire events of J6 being a government conspiracy. It's nonsense. And I'm someone who believes there is a government conspiracy, but I also believe this specific thing is nonsense. So good piece from FX. I actually read a couple other of his on the top. He has some other good ones as well, so I do recommend going to go check that out. All right, let's pop in the chat, say some more hellos, and then we'll get into the 9 after that. and we'll see if we get into the old 9/11 stuff. We'll see if we have time. Let's get into the chat again. Good morning, Neil. It says, good morning, all. Happy haircut, Jose. Knucklehead. Well, happy, I guess not happy haircut to you. That'd be retarded. But thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad you like my head. No, did I already say good morning to you, JC? If not, good morning, JC, you beautiful bastard. Let me see. What else do we got? Is Fire Pixie a glowy? She's a girl. I mean, she is a girl. That's all I will say. Let me see what else we got. All girls are glowy, says Bug Fights. Yes. If you hate fish, you love boys, says Tom33. I don't think that's how that works. Oh, you're talking about the band Fish? No. Morning aggressively agreeing. So the feds could save a lot of hassle and just say they planned it all. Rand Paul will be the courts for years for nothing to happen. Yeah. I don't think I've ever actually listened to Fish once in my life. But according to Cuber, it says Fish is for homosexual twinks and gross bitches. Which, maybe. I mean, I guess I'm not a homosexual twink or a gross bitch with stinky. I do have some. Well, none of my cats are stinky. None of them are really that stinky. But my job is keeping that room clean, so it stays not stinky. So, all right, guys, let's get into the 9. Let's do a little alien talk today. They want you to be focused on the outer space aliens, but while they were doing that, you should be focusing on the coming for your butthole aliens. Although I guess those are the same thing, aren't they? But we'll get into all that. Here's an old clip. Not that old. It's about a month old at this point. But this was kind of the early hubbub about some of the alien stuff about a month ago, as it felt like it was percolating back into the zeitgeist again. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to check out. I like Tim Burchett. He's a good way to start this off. He's a goofy feller. He's a goofy goober, and I dig him for that. I mean, I don't know how this is working. I have a hard time believing he's a dishonest actor, but he could just be such a goddamn boomer that he's just that easy to manipulate by the feds. But either way, here he is leaning hard as fuck in the paint to all the alien stuff. So let's check this out.
I don't have the tinfoil hat on just yet, Congressman, but I'm wondering, kind of how you react to that, because you are connected. You're on the UFO subcommittee. I mean, I'm just wondering what you make of that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much on what Matt said. But I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that
I'm being
tongue-in-cheek?
100% serious. Okay. I've been 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this. If they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up. You'd be up at night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. We just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it. Well, I was briefed. I'll just tell you this. I was briefed last week on an issue, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, and it would have set this country would have come unglued. I think if they would have heard all that I heard, they would demand answers. And we need to, but it's never going to get. Unfortunately, it just keeps getting covered up, and the people that know are dying or disappearing, as the case may be.
Wow.
And for the record, I'm not suicidal, and I don't take risks. So,
I'm glad you said that. I'm speechless, Congressman.
We
will have you back.
You should be, and I told the president, release it all. And the problem is the people that are around.
I do gotta say though, some of the way he delivers this, I guess I just want to like him because he's just such a boomer. Reminds me of I think he's a Tennessee guy too, isn't he? So I don't know. I feel a kindred. It's like a kindred spirit in some way. So I almost want to believe that he's not corrupted. I mean, he's corrupt in the sense that they manipulated him, but not intentionally so. But anyway, even then though, he does it in such a performative type of way that it kind of makes me waver on that. So let's keep going.
The president and the president doesn't know the questions to ask. A few of us are going to have to get with the president and tell him what he needs to ask and where he needs to look. I mean, we're in meetings and they give addresses and tell locations of items, I'll just say. And the public has a right to know, dadgummit. It's your tax dollars.
Absolutely.
Let's get it out there.
You got my attention, Congressman. I appreciate you being as forthcoming as you have been tonight. And we look forward to having you back. Look, I know Donald Trump wants to disclose something. He hasn't done it yet, but I think he wants to be the president to do that. Tim Burchett, thank you.
He does.
All right. Well, what is Mr. Burchett talking about? I mean, we're talking about these aliens. Well, maybe it's not the outer space kinds. Maybe it's the let's do drugs and sleep around, and somehow this will be able to commune with alien entities, and like the Council of Nine. So I know everyone's doing the alien stuff, and but we're going to do our own thing. We're going to go use this as an opportunity to dive into Andrija Puharich's Council of Nine, which I'm pretty sure the Nephilim Death Squad guys have done a bunch of stuff on this, I believe. I think they did the whole circuit a while back, but I found this piece from Dr. Heather Lynn, who is a historian tracing the occult architecture beneath modern power, host of the Midnight Academy podcast, author of 5 books, Mystery School Dropout. I'm going to give her a follow. If she doesn't follow back, though, I'm going to unfollow later. But she is at INANNA believe, Anna believe. Sorry, it's not the greatest at to remember, but either way, or Dr. Heather Lynn, you can just look her up. We have a Substack article of hers that we're going to read here in a minute, but we're a little bit of a teaser for what we're going to go pretty damn deep into here in a moment. In the 1970s, a small group at the home of physician Andrija Puharich in Ossining, New York, began receiving communication from intelligence who self-identified as the Council of Nine. The Nine spoke through medium Phyllis Schlemmer in plain English. They claimed to be the same entities the Egyptian priesthood had called the Ennead. Gene Roddenberry attended these sessions from 1974 and 1975. He took notes and engaged with the material as something he understood to be significant. The cosmology he developed for Star Trek The Next Generation draws unmistakably from the cosmology the Council of Nine dictated Schlemmer. The Q continuum, the godlike beings who manage human evolution from a non-physical position, the specific structural metaphors for non-physical intelligence operating across vast timescales. All of this is in the Lab 9 transcripts before it appears in the Star Trek writer rooms. Roddenberry's late career deterioration tracks a cumulative contact pattern the historical priesthoods understood and that Jack Parsons exhibited in compressed form in the late 1940s after the Babylon working in the Mojave. Full piece walks through what this means for what is being rolled out into the general culture right now. So we're going to go through that. This is over on the H-Files, drheatherlynn.substack.com. So we're going to dig through all this. Pretty interesting. Guys, in the chat, I bet you, I know my audience, you guys I feel like may recall this. I don't really want to state this is the case particularly, but I believe maybe one of you guys, if you can, look it up, because I'm about to be reading, I don't have the time. Gene Roddenberry. So he's one of the guys who went to these, as we just mentioned, went to these sessions. He ended up being a writer for Star Trek Next Generation. Now, I remember... I vaguely recall one time on one of these morning dump shows we looked into, and I think it was one of the main guys of Star Trek, and I believe he had some weird, creepy kid stuff going on, if you catch my drift. I think there's some like crazy clips of him saying some wild shit where you're like, oh, this guy's probably a diddler of some sort. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are multiple writers, multiple people, but I know one of you guys, I know my audience, one of you guys probably know. Chime off in the chat, and whenever we go back to the chat, I'm curious if this is the same guy, because I would totally track if he's also at these weird orgy parties trying to contact demons, and he's also doing crazy other sinister shit. So, but let's go through the piece. This is called Orgies as Summoning Rituals. So in the late 1780s, a Polish-born former Jew turned former Catholic named Jacob Frank was holding court in a manor house outside Frankenfurt under the protection of the local nobility. He styled himself a Polish baron. The local authorities tolerated his presence because he had charmed the right people and arrived with serious money. his followers, who numbered in the thousands at his peak, and had funded his lifestyle through donations from a network of crypto converts spread across Habsburg, Austria, Poland, and the German states, called him by various titles. The most precise was the one he used himself. He was the Big Brother. In Frank's theology, the Big Brother was a specific cosmological role, and not the surveillance figure George Orwell would coin the phrase for 150 years later. The role was the next stage Messiah, the figure who would arrive after the previous Messiah, Sabbatai Zevi, had completed his necessary descent into impurity through his apostasy to Islam in 1666. Frank taught that Sabbatai had been the first stage of the redemption. Sabbatai had descended. Sabbatai had failed publicly in the sense that the world did not recognize the failure as redemption. The next stage required someone to push the descent further, to systematically violate every law that bound the cosmos, and to do so under the explicit theological framework that the violation was the operation. Frank was that someone. The Big Brother was the descended Messiah whose task was to redeem the universe by transgressing it. His daughter Eva, who lived with him and ruled the inner circle after his death, was understood by the followers to be the incarnation of the Shekinah, the indwelling feminine presence of God. Sexual union with her, symbolic or actual, was understood as the central redemptive sacrament of the movement. The rites at the manor house were not orgies in the modern colloquial sense, which is to say, they were not parties. The rites were structured workings conducted under specific theological license in extinguished light conditions, with the participants understanding themselves to be enacting the descent of the divine into impurity for the purpose of redeeming the sparks trapped there. The doctrine that licensed the act is called Ibur. In Lurianic Kabbalah, Ibur is the impregnation of one soul by another, the temporary indwelling of a higher soul in a lower soul, in a lower vessel. The Sabbateans and Frankists used the Ibur doctrine to argue that the participants in their transgressive rites were not committing the transgression as their individual selves. The agent of the act was not the human. The agent was the descended divine spark working through the human vessel. The act of transgression performed by the higher soul through the lower vessel was therefore not sin, but theurgy. Sin became redemption. Transgression became the sacrament. This is not a metaphor in the Frankist sources. Frank's doctrine, transcribed by his followers in the collected sayings called Sloa Pansky, the words of the Lord, is explicit. The law must be transgressed for the next stage Messiah to manifest. The transgression is the working. The body, the participant, is the apparatus. The participant is not the operator. The historical priesthoods of every developed mystery tradition on earth understood the same principle Frank articulated at his court in 1788. The participant in the high-level rite is not the operator. The body of the participant is the apparatus. The operator is the entity that has been summoned through the ritual act, and the entity uses the human vessel to perform the act. This is part of the technology the priesthoods reserved for the inner circle for 5,000 years. This is what Aleister Crowley systemized through the Ordo Templi Orientis at the end of the 19th century, and what Jack Parsons attempted to push further in the Mojave Desert in 1946 with L. Ron Hubbard as scribe. This is what the Council of Nine self-named to Andrea Puharich and Phyllis Schlemmer at a series of sessions in 1974 and 1975 that Gene Roddenberry attended, took notes on, and encoded into the cosmology of Star Trek The Next Generation before his late career deterioration. This is what also is being rolled out right now in 2026 into the general population through the cultural normalization of group sex. The transformational festival circuit, the SLN-derived workshop economy, the contemporary group meditation traditions, and the Lucas Trust seed group infrastructure that operates with consultative status in the United Nations. We've been told our entire cultural life that the term orgy denotes excess, decadence, libertinism, or in the contemporary register, sexual liberation. In the working vocabulary of the priesthoods that developed the technology, the term denotes something else entirely. The orgy is the configuration is the technology summons. The English word orgy comes directly from the Greek orgia, which did not mean what it means now. Orgia referred specifically to the secret rites of the mystery cults, especially the Dionysian rites. The Greek term carried no implication of sexual excess in the modern sense. It denoted the structured ritual workings performed by initiates of the mystery traditions conducted in altered states in specific geometries with a doctrinal framework that licensed their participants as vessels for the entities the rite summoned. The contemporary meaning of orgy as group sexual activity is a downstream cultural collapse of what the word originally referred to. The piece you are reading is the recovery of the original meaning. If the original meaning of orgia was the secret rites of the mystery occults, who preserved that meaning across the cultural collapse? Who was still working the rites after the broader cultural forgot what the word referred to? The Frankist material is the cleanest documented case where the theological license is articulated systematically. The Tantric Agana Chakra, the Dionysian Theosos, the Egyptian temple cult, the medieval witch Sabbath, as the trial confessions describe it, the Sabbatean and Frankist rites, all run on the same principle. The geometry of the rite matters, the number of participants matters, the doctrinal preparation of the participants matters. What does not matter in the working as the priesthoods understand it is the consent of the participants in the modern sense, because the participators are not the operators. The operators are the entities the rite summons. I covered the dyadic operation in money, sex, and sorcery. Two operators focused intention. The substance focus flows to the held image of the moment of climax. The dyadic working produces offering. The substance flows from the human side of the transaction to the divine side. The yield is bounded by what two nervous systems can produce. The yield is the energetic output the parasitic system extracts from the human nervous system. It is what Robert Monroe called loosh, or Robert Monroe. It is the reason the ritual exists. The group working produces something else. Multiple participants in specific geometry sexually engage in altered states with a doctrinal framework that licenses the human body as a vessel rather than as an agent, produces conditions under which the entities can functionally enter the rite. The entities arrive, the entities use the bodies, the substance produced is generated through the entity's activity using the human participants, not through the participants' offering. The yield is qualitatively different because the source is different. The priesthood reserved this technology, now they are giving it to a population that does not know what it is. Let me see, I'm debating. Let's do one more segment. I think I'm going to break this into two. So we'll do part two tomorrow. We'll do part two here, or this is broken into three segments in this specific Substack. So we're getting on to the second one, the Eber and the doctrine of the descended spark. Let's get into that, and then we'll move on, and hopefully then we'll have enough time to get into our third segment. I do want to get into that. The Eber and the doctrine of the descended spark. You need the Lurianic frame to understand what the Frankists were actually doing, because the Frankist theology is a radical extension of a much older Jewish mystical doctrine that runs through the Safed circle of the 16th century and into every Kabbalistic tradition that followed. The Frankist theology builds on Lurianic Kabbalah, the cosmological system Isaac Luria articulated in Safed in the 1570s. The short version for readers new to my work is that the universe in the Lurianic system is broken. Divine sparks fell into the Kelipot, the shells of impurity, when the original vessels of creation shattered. The cosmic redemptive task is tikkun, the gathering and elevation of these sparks back to their source. I laid out the full architecture in my Charlie Kirk piece earlier this year for leaders or for readers who want the depth. What matters here is the Sabbatean and Frankists, what the Sabbatean and Frankists did with the framework. Luria's circle resolved the tikkun task through prayer, meditation, and ritual acts performed within Jewish law. The Sabbateans, who emerged a century later around the figure of Sabbatai Zevi, resolved it differently. Sabbatai declared himself the Messiah in 1665 and 1666. When the Ottoman Sultan presented him with the choice of conversion to Islam or death, Sabbatai converted. The movement, instead of collapsing, developed a sophisticated theology to explain why the Messiah had to descend into impurity. Nathan of Gaza, Sabbatai's chief theologian, articulated the doctrine in his treatise on the dragons. Sabbatai's soul was uniquely structured to descend into the Kelipot and redeem the sparks trapped there directly. The apostasy was reframed not as failure, but as the Messiah's necessary descent. The doctrine has a name, Mitzvah Haba Ba Avaria. Sorry, I need to be mature. The commandment fulfilled through transgression. Gershom Sholom's essay, Redemption Through Sin, remains the foundational scholarly treatment. That's in Sholem, 1971. The radical Sabbateans pushed the doctrine into ritual practice. The Donma communities in Salonika, descendants of Sabbatean converts to Islam who maintain their secret Sabbatean practice across generations, are reported in both internal and hostile sources to have practiced antinomian rites that involve married couples gathering in extinguished light conditions, engaging in ritual sexual exchanges that violated the marital bonds permitted under Jewish law. The transgression was theurgy. Their participants were performing tikkun by descending into impurity and elevating the sparks trapped there. No, honey, I love you. I just want to perform tikkun by descending into impurity and elevating the sparks trapped here on earth. Frank pushed the doctrine into its terminal point. He taught that all law, including Sabbatean law, must be transgressed for the next stage, Messiah, to manifest. The court at the Manor House implemented this systematically. Pavel Maciejko's The Mixed Multitude documents the rites in considerable detail. Harris Lenowitz's English translation of the words of the Lord gives you Frank's doctrine in his own voice. The mechanism that licensed the transgression theologically is the Ibur doctrine I named in the opening. In standard Lurianic Kabbalah, Ibur is a temporary indwelling of one soul in another body. A higher soul descends into a lower vessel for a specific redemptive purpose, performs the action the higher soul is uniquely structured to perform, and withdraws. The lower vessel, the human participant, is not the agent in the action. The lower vessel is the apparatus through which the higher soul performs the work. The Frankist application of the Ibur doctrine to the transgressive sexual rite is theologically clean. The participant is not committing the transgression as their individual self. The participant is hosting a higher soul, in many cases identified as a fragment of the descended Messiah's own soul, which is performing the redemptive theurgy through the participant's body. The participant is not the operator. The descended divine spark is the operator. This is a claim that travels across every developed mystery tradition. The participant is not the operator. The technology allows the entities, whatever their cosmological identification in the local vocabulary, to enter the human vessel and use it. The Sabbatean Frankist tradition is the cleanest case in the Western documentary record because the doctrine is articulated systematically and the primary sources survive. The same principle runs through every other developed tradition that worked at this level. All right, well, we're going to save the second half of this for tomorrow. We'll go into part 2 of this. I find this particularly super interesting. Holy shit, what the hell is going on? I just noticed I'm showing 0 on Twitter. I wonder what is going on over there. Is my Twitter showing that like I'm not even, like it dropped the stream? That's weird. What did they get wigged out by the wieners that were on that little thing? Let me see. That was weird. Let me see. Well, no, it's showing. That's weird. Or whatever. StreamYard's just being goofy. It's still showing on X. So if you guys are on Twitter, feel free to share it. Just StreamYard for some reason showing we have 0 people over on Twitter for some reason. But that doesn't make any sense. All right, let's pop in the chat, say some more hellos, and then let's get into our final segment. Israel allegedly did 9/11. But we'll. Okay, one second. Sorry. All right, let's pop back into the chat. Sorry. Let's see what you guys got to say. Fire Pixie, Alien Wars, whatever else. What about the Epstein files? Well, we're gonna come back to Epstein. We haven't forgotten. We'll keep coming back to it. Good morning, Captain Caveman. It says the 9 is gay and lame, and this lady is just channeling the metaphysical FBI. I mean, I think it's probably gay and lame as well, but it's a fun story. What do you mean? What do you mean? You're gonna have to expand on that, Captain Caveman. What do you mean by it's gay and lame? Are you thinking the whole 9 story is just made up or something? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm open to it. What else we see? Good morning, K Sharp says you were right, Kerp. Mexican has showed the clip of Gene Roddenberry talking about little girls' panties. See, I knew it. Yeah, that's right. Gene Roddenberry, the guy from the 9. The guy was hanging out with all these people. Apparently, yeah. I remember we played this show forever ago. Him talking about like something like that, like little girls' panties or some sort of crazy. Like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Good morning, Phobes. Good morning. All right. All right. Let's get into the last segment. We definitely have time for this. let's get into Israel allegedly did 9/11. This is a little bit more of a grab bag of talking shit about Israel because if anybody deserves it, it sure is them. So let's go ahead and go through. Here's Naftali Bennett, who, I mean, a lot of people have been throwing around this idea that that Netanyahu may be some sort of scapegoat for all the stuff going on in the Middle East, and they're going to end up, because I think they're like getting ready for an election or in the midst or something like that. I know they're I mean, he's dealing with his corruption stuff for one, and then also I think some sort of Israeli election or something like that's coming up soon. I've been hearing lots of talk about like Naftali, particularly this guy here, says the possible next prime minister of Israel, Naftali, who's, I believe he's been a prime minister in the past as well. But he had some stuff to say. I mean, with Netanyahu not possibly being there, it doesn't necessarily mean anything better. Here's Naftali Bennett saying some stuff about, oh no, if U.S. was ever just to let Israel do its own thing, that the calamity that could embrace the world. So let's see what he had to say.
The reality is that Israel is a democracy, is the best ally America can have. And
NATO's not helping.
Imagine for a moment we don't exist, okay? And you've got the Middle East festering with jihadists and Al-Qaeda type and ISIS and Hezbollah. We know what'll happen. They're going to hit the towers, 9/11.
You were in New York when that happened.
I was in Manhattan when it happened. I saw those buildings on fire. That's what happens when you say the Middle East isn't our problem, we don't care. So the radical Islamists will come to the big Satan, to Manhattan, to California, to America, but with nuclear ballistic missiles. And by having Israel, you do not need to send hundreds of thousands of boots on the ground, because we, Israelis, are 10 million boots on the ground, always here. Yeah. This aircraft carrier called Israel is not going anywhere. We're here to stay. We're not asking, and we never asked America to fight for us. We're fighting right now in the air together. We can defend ourselves. We do need America to have our back.
All right, so he needs us to have their back. Because we're safer with them over there. They're not asking for any of our help. They didn't ask us to do any of this stuff over the Middle East. Well, I don't know. I remember this little thing called 9/11. I don't know about you guys. Here's Conspiracy Bot, who's asking a few interesting questions, such as why were 4,000 Jewish people warned before 9/11? Why did the warning come via an Israeli app in Hebrew? Why wasn't Howard Lutnick at work that day? Why was the owner Larry Silverstein absent? Why did he increase insurance? Who were the dancing Israelis? All very fine questions. Let's check out this clip. See what more has to say for us here.
Thousands of Israelis were reported to have been at the World Trade Center that day. 4,000 Israelis believed to have been in the area of the World Trade Center and the Pentagon at the time of the attack. Of those 4,000 people who were supposedly there, only 3 or 4 died. How did they avoid harm? There was an instant messaging service called Odigo, an Israeli instant messaging service, that sent out a warning 2 hours before 9/11 happened, warning people not to go to the World Trade Center that day because there would be a catastrophe there. But it was sent out in Hebrew.
The head of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, just happened to be out of the office that day that the terrorists struck. Mr. Lutnick was taking his son to his first day of kindergarten.
Where were you on September 11th?
I was home. And
whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil.
This is a case that took the FBI and the CIA more than 2 months to sort out, while 5 Israelis waited in jail.
It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices. The offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind.
Okay. All right. Looks a little fishy to me. Also, here we have here's a little article. It says Epstein was trained as a spy for Israel. FBI documents claim. Now, we're not going to go through the weeds. We're not going to read this article. Here's an excerpt of it. We'll read that real quick. It says it's from express.k.uk. It says Jeffrey Epstein was trained as a spy under an Israeli prime minister. Unclassified FBI documents claim newly unearthed documents obtained from the FBI and released by the DOJ show a classified document discussing Epstein's relationship with U.S. and allied intelligence services. The source of the disgraced financier's wealth has long been speculated upon, with little known about the origin of his fortune. Some have speculated that Epstein's wealth might at least in part have been a result of work with foreign intelligence service. The document from 2020 reads, Jeffrey Epstein, it ends there. But yeah, so we've covered this plenty on this show. It very much seems like this is, maybe he wasn't technically a spy for Israel, like in the exclusive sense, or literally an Israeli spy, but clearly was some sort of asset. I mean, he was doing in Africa? He was helping set up like weird security apparatuses, or I forget exactly what it was, but he was doing weird glowy shit explicitly for Israel in Africa. What else? He also had Pottinger, the Iran-Contra guy, was living at his place for a while. He had Ehud Barak, in and out all the fucking time. So I mean, he had Netanyahu. He essentially is arranged for him to show up to events. Like this is a guy with some shit going on. I'm trying to think of what other. Also his some of the documents that were released. I mean, there's just so much that proves this out. It's actually ridiculous. I know there were documents that showed that essentially he allowed Israel, the Israeli intelligence, to outfit his property with essentially surveillance devices all over it. So he literally had his place bugged by Israel. So, I mean, I don't know what more we need other than a glowing sign above his head that says, I work for Israel, before we accept that. But we'll take that for granted and move on. Let's talk a little bit about his relationship with Peter Thiel, because that seems significant. If you understand anything about Peter Thiel and the degree to which the things he owns are seeping into this world, especially once you start looking into some of the influencers who go way too soft on him. You start seeing a little bit behind the curtain. You go, oh shit, Peter Thiel's a guy to look out for. Well, Israel seemed to have their dirty hooks in him as well. It's from Branko Marcetic. We're going to go through this thread. It says, emails show that Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein's friendship was much closer than was known, and that Epstein encouraged Thiel's growing interest and involvement in right-wing politics, introducing him to U.S. and foreign officials to that end, some with intel ties. It says, after Epstein's crimes blew up in the headlines in early 2015, Thiel told him he wasn't bothered, that he hoped it would blow over soon. In fact, and then suggested they use it to strategize how to weather controversies. He also told him he'd visit the island. Epstein showered Thiel with generosity, including tax advice and straight up offering him $50 to $100 million to invest. Thiel in turn gave him investment advice, sent him his book, and pushed him to invest $10 million to $20 million in his firm's new fund. By the way, I do want to remind you guys, this guy was Howard Lutnick's next door neighbor. Keep in mind, Howard Lutnick was one of the guys we just watched in that clip who magically managed to evade a certain death in 9/11 by just so happening to pick that one time to be the only time he ever took his kid to school. So, seems quite handy there. I don't know, maybe we're being sloppy connecting dots there, but I can see the connection for sure. It was a beneficial friendship as Epstein and a Bitcoin developer strategized for how the late pedophile could invest in a Bitcoin mining startup despite his toxic name. He appeared to use his friendship with Thiel as a reputational shield, saying he could vouch for him. When Epstein learned Thiel was a Trump delegate, he seemed to take an interest in making sure Thiel grew his influence within Trump world and advised him on how to do it, connecting him with Trump friend and fundraiser Tom Barak and discouraging him from publicly criticizing Trump. So Tom Barak is one of these guys I've said many times that one of these days we need to do a segment on him and his Epstein connection. So here's another example of it. That is the ambassador to, believe, Lebanon, and I think somewhere else, maybe Turkey. I forget. I think he's like the ambassador to a couple. Lebanon, obviously being the significant one. So We covered him occasionally here and there way back in the day in the early diplomatic stages of all the ceasefire, because I know we're currently in a ceasefire with, or not we, Israel and Lebanon are in a quote-unquote ceasefire, despite the fact they're murdering shitload of people. But before that, they were in a ceasefire. So they were in a ceasefire that was consistently murder was happening, and I guess murder got to a level to where they could no longer call it a ceasefire, and then they got a ceasefire again. Now, Tom Barak, in the original ceasefire, he was kind of a common name that we may bring up, and kind of the ridiculous back and forth, diplomatic back and forth. He was kind of the point man for Israel and the United States when it came to applying pressure to the Lebanese government to try to get them to do what he wanted. And considering that Israel wasn't obeying their side of the deal, like this was the guy who should have been being the neutral party, trying to enforce these ceasefires. Meanwhile, he was completely, obviously, on Team Israel through all of that. So, very, very sinister, corrupt character, and has lots of connections to Epstein. But so here's another example of him. So I guess this is somebody that Epstein set Thiel up with him to try to get him into the fold. Other political players Epstein worked to put Thiel in touch with include Bill Burns, Bob Kerrey, Catherine Rumler. CSIS had Tom Pritzker and a number of European and Asian officials. It says Epstein got his wish. The Thiel of today is a pro-war figure in bed with the deep state and a major part of the right-wing projects surrounding Trump, thanks to his relationship and the sponsorship of VP J.D. Vance. Now, what I just gave you was a severely truncated version of Branko's little thread here and an attached article. So I just did give it a retweet. So if you guys do want to go check out a more in depth to support some of the things we just said there. Although this is all stuff we've talked about in the show. This is just kind of putting it together in a nice cohesive way. So go check that out. I retweeted it on my page. Moving on, as we're dealing with this the current Israeli paradigm, what is Congress doing? They are here's what they're doing. Here's a little excerpt. It says Hassan Piker, a prominent online streamer, has often used anti-Semitic rhetoric. Oh, never mind. I'm retarded. I'm presenting this wrong. Congress is set to introduce a resolution. This was about a week ago, condemning Hassan Piker for allegedly spreading anti-Semitism. The resolution was brought forward by Representatives Josh Gottheimer, Democrat, funny enough, and Mike Lawler, Republican from New York. The two received nearly $3 million from AIPAC/pro-Israel lobby groups combined. Now, I'm no fan of Hassan, but this is ridiculous. Here's the excerpt. It says, in August 2019, during a stream on Twitch, Hassan Piker stated that America deserved 9/11. Okay, I don't agree with that, obviously. Whereas Hassan Piker referred to Orthodox Jews as inbred. I mean. Whereas Hassan Piker downplayed sexual violence committed by Hamas, designated foreign terrorist organization, against innocent civilians on October 7, 2023, stating, it doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me. Once again, it didn't happen. And two, Hassan is 100% correct here. If it did happen, it still doesn't change the dynamic. Even if every single person that died on October 7th was raped, and even let's say they duplicated that, and also for every person who died on October 7th, they raped a separate other person, it still would not justify a single fucking goddamn thing that is happening right now. Like, at all. So, Hassan's 100% correct there. He's also expressed support for Hamas on multiple occasions, including April 14, 2026, saying, Hamas over Israel every single time, and doubling down on claims in multiple media personnel appearances that Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. Also, I will also agree with him on that. I actually, I wish I had that clip. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Really, my mouse just died. I need to change the battery. Let's try this again. Let's actually hunt that clip down, because it's a good ass clip. So, because he's totally correct in that one. Let me see. No, I'm not gonna hunt down the clip. Let's see. Maybe it's in the replies. I didn't realize they're gonna refer that clip. I don't know. Maybe we'll look for it here in a minute. But moving on, as Congress is going after Hassan Piker for saying almost mostly true and based things. Here's a little bit of look back on some piece. I don't know if you guys recall a while ago. We talked about this, that there were, in the early days of the Iran stuff, were all these quotes coming out from certain publications on like what the Iranian people had to say about this. So we got a lot of propaganda about like, oh, here's this Iranian who says, oh, I think it's great we're being bombed and this and that. Well, there was one quote that was crazy over the top, essentially a quote implying it would be okay if Iran got nuked by one of the Iranian civilians or whatever. And then it later quietly got removed. Well, this person right here, this is Gonsha Azad. This is the person who is the reporter. She's a senior reporter of the BBC Persian Forensic, previously BBC Monitoring Iran team. It's since been revealed she's a dedicated regime change activist whose career was launched by a CIA-funded propaganda network. So many such cases. Here's another example of this. This is someone, if you interact on Twitter, you may have seen this guy before, Jordan Schachtel. Here is a clip essentially straight up showing that this guy is Israeli agent. Here's a secret camera type investigation where they got him essentially admitting it. He goes on block sprees occasionally whenever people point this out and gets dogpiled on it. He was a kind of a semi-notable influencer a while back. A lot of you guys may realize. I think once this little bit of information kind of spread out, he lost his luster. But he's still riding off. It seems like some of that slot bots, if you catch my drift. But here's the clip. Check it out.
There are also other things that we do that are completely off the radar. When we work together with a lot of other organizations, we produce content that they then publish with their own name on it.
The Israel Project is supplying what it calls white label, that is unbranded content, to other outlets.
We're putting together a lot of pro-Israel media through various social media channels that aren't the Israel Project's channel. So we have a lot of side projects that we're trying to influence the public debate with. So that's why it's a secretive thing, because we don't want people to know that these side projects are associated with the Israel Project.
TIP runs a collection of Facebook communities that cover topics ranging from history and the environment to current affairs and feminism. But their affiliations to the Israel Project are deliberately vague.
Why is it that they can't be connected to the Israel Project? I think it's because we want people to view them as subjectively as possible. We have a team of 13 people, and we're working on a lot of videos, explainers. A lot of it is just random topics, and then maybe 25% of it would be Israel or Jewish states.
The Israel brand is increasingly toxic. So you can't sell Israel directly. You have to have sort of other hip stuff that's just very innocuous, fun, and then from time to time you're going to slip something about Israel in.
Is the idea that all the rest of the non-Israel stuff is to allow the Israel stuff to pass better? That's the key thing? Just that we want to blend in everything.
All right, wants to blend in. That is seems to be a common thing with that of people. Here's a clip I was talking about. I searched for it while they were doing that. Here's Hassan. Here's a little clip they're giving him shit about how he's saying you'd vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. And I guess the question was, when you say Hamas is 1,000 times better, that's the quote. And then he goes, I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. So these are separate quotes. I think people are putting them together. So he said Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel, but then he's also said separately he would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. Here's the clip.
So my question is, when you say Hamas is 1,000 times better, do you actually mean that? Or is that a rhetorical move or a solidarity signal? What?
I mean, it's all of the above. I do mean it. I think it's a rhetorical move because it frustrates a lot of people. I've also said I'm a harm reduction voter. I'm a lesser evil voter, and therefore I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time.
So my question is, when you say...
All right, no lies detected. No, I wouldn't vote for Hamas over Israel. I just wouldn't. What is even the point of that vote? But I guess if gun to head, if I had to choose Hamas or Israel, Hamas. I'm just being completely honest. I've studied Israel too deeply. Yeah, they do some fucked up shit. It's funny. I mentioned this was kind of spurred on the fact that I kind of resolved to be like, we're doing this today. We're doing this segment is somebody, on one of the on the Already Dead, there was a comment from somebody kind of going on about how like, oh, Israel can't, kind of like, you guys are being so shitty on Israel and really look at the Muslims and which, don't get me wrong, I think there's definitely negative things about the belief system of Islam. I'm by no means a scholar. I feel like I've gotten pretty decent, unfortunately, on some of the belief systems of the Jews throughout all of this. Kind of been forced to learn why they be doing the shit they be doing. But I mean, if you want to point out how sinister Islam is, well, then let's sit down and talk a little bit about Judaism, particularly the Kabbalah, which we already did a little bit with our talk on the 9. And we'll probably talk a little bit more tomorrow. But here's we've already read the first one of these before, but I figured we'd just read all of these excerpts from R.J. Murrow digging into the Kabbalah belief system. This is R.J. Murrow, Toxic Tiramisu. It says, Chabad Kabbalah teaches that Gentiles have satanic souls and exist only to serve Jews, while Jews are holy in the purpose of creation. As the Rebbe states, a non-Jew's entire reality is only vanity, while their existence is most important, the reason everything was created. Now, for this first page, I'm only going to read the highlighted portion since we already read it, I think, on a recent dump, but I wanted to read all of these. So it says, the actual fact is that Kabbalistic texts, as opposed to Talmudic literature, emphasize salvation for only Jews. Many books dealing with the Kabbalah that are written in Hebrew, other than those written by Sholem, present an honest description of salvation and other sensitive Jewish issues. The theory of evil in the satanic sphere in Lurianic Kabbalah says, it is plain that those prospects and the scheme of salvation are intended only for Jews. Tishby cited Rabbi Haim Vital, the chief interpreter of Rabbi Luria, who wrote in his book, Gates of Holiness, the emanating power, blessed be his name, wanted there to be some people in this low earth that would embody the 4 divine emanations. These people are Jews, chosen to join together the 4 divine worlds here below. Tishby further cited Vital's writings and emphasizing the Lurianic doctrine that non-Jews have satanic souls. Souls of non-Jews come entirely from the female part of the satanic sphere. For this reason, souls of non-Jews are called evil, not good, and are created without divine knowledge. The role of Satan, whose earthly embodiment according to the Kabbalah is every non-Jew, has been minimized or not mentioned by authors who have not written about the Kabbalah in Hebrew. Such authors, therefore, have not conveyed to readers accurate accounts of general NRP or its hardcore Gush and Umunim politics. Continuing on, a modern and influential expression of the latitudes derived above is evident in the teaching and writings of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who headed the Chabad movement and wielded great influence among many religious Jews in Israel as well as in the United States. Schneerson and his Lubavitch followers are Haredim. Nevertheless, they involved themselves in Israel's political life and shared many concepts with Gush Umunim and the NRP. The ideas of Rabbi Schneerson that appear below are taken from a book of his recorded messages to followers in Israel, titled Gatherings of Conversations, and published in the Holy Land in 1965. During the subsequent 3 decades of his life until his death, Rabbi Schneerson remained consistent. He did not change any of the opinions. What Rabbi Schneerson taught either was or immediately became official Lubavitch Hasidic belief. Regarding the non-Jew, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's views were clear, even if a bit disorderly. In such a manner, the halakha, stipulated by the Talmud, showed the non-Jew should be punished by death if he kills an embryo, even if the embryo is non-Jewish, while the Jew should not be, even if the embryo is Jewish. As we, the Talmudic sages, learn from Exodus 22:21, beginning with the words, and if any mischief will follow. This quoted verse is a part of a passage beginning in verse 21, describing what should be done if men strive and hurt a woman with child, thus damaging the embryo. Verse 22, whose beginning is quoted by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, says in full, and if any mischief will follow, then you shall give soul for soul. Some English translations use the wording life for life instead of soul for soul. The above stated difference in the punishment of a Jew and a non-Jew for the same crime is common in the Talmud and Halakha. So the difference between a Jewish and a non-Jewish person stems from the common expression. Let us differentiate. Thus, we do not have a case of profound change in which a person is merely on a superior level. Rather, we have a case of let us differentiate between totally different species. This is what needs to be said about the body. The body of a Jewish people is of a totally different quality from the body of members of all nations of the world. The old rabbi, a pseudonym for one of the holy Lubavitch rabbis, explained that the passage in chapter 49 of Tanya, the basic book of Chabad, is that and you have chosen us, the Jews, means specifically that the Jewish body was chosen by God. Because a choice is thus made between outwardly similar things. The Jewish body looks as if it were in substance similar to bodies of non-Jews. But the meaning is that the bodies only seem to be similar in material substance, outward look, and superficial quality. The difference of the inner quality, however, is so great that the bodies should be considered as completely different species. This is the reason why the Talmud states there is a halakhic difference in attitude between the bodies of non-Jews as opposed to the bodies of Jews. Their bodies are in vain. An even greater difference exists in regard to the soul. Two contrary types of souls exist. A non-Jewish soul comes from 3 satanic spheres, while the Jewish soul stems from holiness. As has been explained, an embryo is called a human being because it has both body and soul. Thus, the difference between a Jewish and a non-Jewish embryo can be understood. There is also a difference in bodies. The body of a Jewish embryo is on a higher level than is the body of a non-Jew. This is expressed in the phrase, let us differentiate about the body of a non-Jew, which is of a totally different kind. The same difference exists in regard to the soul. The soul of a Jewish embryo is different than the soul of a non-Jewish embryo. We therefore ask, why should a non-Jew be punished if he kills even a non-Jewish embryo, while a Jew should be punished even if he kills a Jewish embryo? Or while a Jew should not be punished even if he kills a Jewish embryo? The answer can be understood by considering the general difference between Jews and non-Jews. A Jew was not created as a means for some other purpose. He himself is the purpose, since the substance of all divine emanations was created only to serve the Jews. In the beginning of God created the heavens and the earth, Genesis 1:1, means that the heavens and the earth were created for the sake of the Jews, who are called the beginning. This means everything, all developments, all discoveries of creation, including the heavens and the earth, are vanity compared to the Jews. The important things are the Jews, because they do not exist for any other aim. They themselves are the divine aim. All right, we're one more, then we're done. This is after some additional Kabbalistic explanation, the Lubavitcher Rebbe concluded, following from what has already been said, it can be understood why a non-Jew should be punished by death if he kills an embryo, and why a Jew should not be punished by death. The difference between the embryo and a baby that was born is that the embryo is not a self-contained reality, but rather is subsidiary. A self-contained reality. That is an interesting way to put themselves, and then we are subsidiaries of self-contained reality. Okay, because they do kind of believe they are gods in a way. Either it is subsidiary to its mother or to the reality created after birth when the divine purpose of its creation is then fulfilled. In its present state, the purpose is still absent. A non-Jew's entire reality is only vanity. It is written, and the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks. Isaiah 61:5. The entire creation of a non-Jew exists only for the sake of the Jews. Because of this, a non-Jew should be punished with death if he kills an embryo, while a Jew whose existence is most important should not be punished with death because of something subsidiary. We should not destroy an important thing for the sake of something subsidiary. It is true that there's a prohibition against hurting an embryo, because it is something that will be born in the future and in a hidden form already exists. The death penalty should be implicated only when visible matters are affected. As previously noted, the embryo is merely of subsidiary importance. So I know that was quite in-depth, but I think it kind of displays the Kabbalah does not think a whole lot about us non-Jays. All right, guys. With that, that is all we have for today. I do have a fun outro for you guys that I think you'll like that is quite on topic for what we've been talking about today. But let's roll through the chat one more time. Say our goodbyes. Any last good mornings that we missed. But let's roll through. Let's check what's in here. Bug Fight says, my health insurance increased by over 1,000 without notice this week. Well, I mean, you're going to get to the point where it's just better to not have one. No health insurance team right here, buddy. If I get fucked up, I am screwed. Although I think like at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if you broke it down financially. It's actually legitimately probably cheaper, unless you're somebody who has lots of medical issues. So, I mean, I don't know. How much does it cost to go to the doctor? Like $200 usually? I mean, depending on what's wrong with you. Aggressively agreeing, says he's closer to an actual Semite the entire Jewish population. Says he's practically making fun of himself while the Khazars are taking offense. Hilarious. Yep. Good morning, GitHub. Good morning. Good to see you here. Tom's mentioning, we talked about the dolphins earlier. He says another country actually did train dolphins to swim to enemy ships so they could strap bombs to them. Could have been us during MKUltra. Yeah, I recall that. I don't know if it was like the Russians or if that was us or what, but I do recall that being some weird factoid I've read before. Good morning, Chris. Good to see you here. Good morning. I think I said good morning to you, Hubert. Captain Caveman giving us a little more exposition on his 9 comments earlier. He says, can't remember the deets, but Kerp mentioned something about the 9 being high priests of some gay Kabbalah mystery school tied to the Temple of Solomon or shit like that. Okay, yeah, that is, I mean, that sounds right. I mean, we haven't got there yet, but we'll talk about it more tomorrow. Good morning, Northside. Says, God is a fool that we can hoodwink with sleight of hand parlor tricks, Jose. Yup. All right, never pay for health insurance is Cubert. Yeah, I mean, at this point, with the state of the health insurance system, I don't know why you would, really, unless you're like, I don't know. I guess there are circumstances that would make sense, but ain't nobody got time for that. I can't afford that shit. All right, guys, let's get out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I guess we'll do part 2 of the 9-bit, the 9 thing. Although I should probably maybe title it differently. I thought it was going to be more about the 9 than it was. I guess it's more generally just about contacting entities, but whatever. We'll call it the 9, I guess, just for simplification, since you guys will know what to look for tomorrow. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to say. I think that's it, guys. For those who want to support what I'm doing, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at TowerGangJose. Everywhere else, that's just No Way Jose. So just look that up. You'll find it. And if you want to support the show the best way you can, you do the money. Or patreon.com is No Way Jose 2020. See that QR code right there. Use that sucker if you want to. That brings you to the same exact place. And over there, you get a whole host of perks. Gives you access to 1 to 2 episodes per week behind the paywall. I try to keep about 3 to 4 behind the paywall at any given time. You also get access to the ad-free RSS feed. You get access to the Telegram, the pre-show, the post-show, and video calls on me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which was yesterday, Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So pop in for those. Fun time. And the highest level is my Patreon, or my Patreon sponsors, and I give them a big shout-out as a big thank you for their support. I'm my previous host on Tower Gang, at Leonard Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZOVRCK, at _Invisiel, Tim Tuttle, at John and Klebo, a big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tackers, Winter Cover Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Wintergrad of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. And with that, guys, we're going to get out of here. I do have an outro for you guys, a little bit from Kill Tony that was pretty damn good. He got some good roasts in there. You guys should enjoy it, and it's perfectly on theme for today's episode. We'll see you tomorrow, and for the non-poors, we have Wolfson back on tonight for the weekly Wolfson. I think we're going to be talking about the media's systematic dehumanization of the Palestinians. That'll be fun. Lots of fun. I don't know. I mean, it'll be fun to talk to Matt, but it is a dark topic. So, but with that, guys, we'll see you tomorrow and tonight if you're. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Make some noise if you've been to a bar mitzvah.
Okay, what are we doing
Okay,
here?
sorry.
Let's just get into it. Answer my question.
I'm so sorry.
Make some noise if you've done some Yiddish shit. What the fuck? Come on. Stick with the thing here. Make some noise if you like saving money. Make some noise if you like over-retaliating in a war with barely a competitor. Who loves destroying civilian lives? Make some noise! Oh, yeah. You're in a little truth chamber tonight.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
It's all jokes. It's a comedy show. Jewish people would never do any of those things. You guys would never do that to Palestine. All right.
I think there's